All right, so on that last part, we were just dealing with positives. But if we look at a number line, it's common to see a number line like this, which is actually kind of weird for me because I'm old enough to see thermometers that were not digital. So we used to see numbers that on a thermometer that would go below zero like this. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Maybe I'm just making myself really old here. But if we go to the left of zero, then we run into negative numbers like, well, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Negatives are, well, they're pretty important values because usually we owe people money, which is bad. Sometimes it's, the bank. Sometimes it's your brother, and then they beat you up. Or you beat them up, whatever. But it's better to be on the right side of zero, which is the positive values. But the negative values have an effect. It's kind of just saying that we have an opposite of something. So if I said, hey, you got $5, well, what's the opposite of $5? Of having $5? Yeah, you'd have -$5, or that you owe someone $5, right? Or in temperature, let's say this is 4 degrees right there. Well, what's the opposite of 4 degrees? -4 degrees, right? Celsius, Fahrenheit. I don't think Kelvin's going to zero, but whatever. You see, so we have some oppositeness there, and that's what I emphasize with negatives. We got to think about that in terms of opposites. All right, write a sign number for each situation. So, I mean, if you're depositing $200 in the bank, that's great. So, hopefully you guys can do that a lot, all the time, right? But a deposit is when you're putting money in the bank. I don't really like these because it's all about perspective on these, okay? Well, if you take $200 out of your pocket and put it in, then you got rid of $200. But your account went up by $200. You see what I'm saying? In this case, I'm just saying that, well, the account, since it mentioned the account, we added $200 to that thing. So it'd be positive 200. We don't really need the positive there. Because remember how math people are really lazy? They hated just writing that positive sign all the time. Did that rhyme? I don't know. Well, number 3, 20 feet above sea level. Well, since we're above, we're looking at more of a vertical type number line, right? So from 0, which would be sea level, you'd be 20 feet above that. Bam, we get positive 20. Sorry if that looks like a 6. Number 2, I withdraw $100 from my account. So this is the nice thing about these 1 and 2 there is, depending on how you answer number 1, should determine how you're answering number 2. If you say they're both positive, I'm sorry, one of them's wrong, okay? One of them's got to be positive, one's negative. Well, withdraw from your account at $100. You're withdrawing, so you're taking it out. That's going to make it negative. A withdraw is the opposite of a deposit. Thank you. Sorry, the words are bouncing around in there. So we got a negative 100. Yeah, if you label it too, that's fine. You're not going to lose points if you label it. 40 feet below sea level. Well, again, sea level is at 0, so on this vertical number line, you'd be down into the negatives below, which would put you at -40. You guys feel pretty good about that stuff? Yep. All right, on this number line, we got to identify these values. Let's start with B, which is 4. Well, 4, again, if we start at 0, 4 should be 4 units to the right on a horizontal number line. So I'm going to put a dot there. I will label it B, and that's good. Let's do D as well. Well, if D is 3, then, well, 3 to the right of 0 is there. It doesn't matter if you label that above or below on the stuff. I think on the homework, it just kind of puts it there for you. F is at -8. We'll do this one in green. So that's negative. I'm going to be to the left of 0, 8 units. Bam, found it. And I can label it F. We'll just do B and D on this one, okay? No, we need to do a positive and negative. Let's do B and C. Yeah, that sounds really good. So B, we talked about opposites, right? So on a number line, it's exactly the same distance away from 0, just on the other side of 0. So if I were to demonstrate this, B, this is 0. 7 is to the left of 0, so I'm too lazy to put all 7 marks there. Hope that's okay. Well, 7 to the right of 0 would be its opposite. So the opposite to negative 7 is 7. So what about C? That's 3.7 units away from 0. So what's the opposite? And that would have been to the right. So we'd have to go to the left. What's the opposite of 3.7 then? There you go. Negative 3.7. And that is C. All right, simplify the following. So here's what we got. Let's look at, well, we'll do all 3 of these. A right here is negative 4. Well, if I simplify that, that's not too bad. It's just negative 4. Okay. But B, that's the opposite of negative 5. That's how that reads, okay? Because we got this negative out in front, which tells us it's the opposite. So what is the opposite of this negative 5? Well, that would be positive 5. Okay. Now here we have the opposite of what would be, in this set of parentheses, the opposite of negative 14. So what is the opposite of negative 14 first? That'd be a positive 14. But we still have that negative out in front. So what's the opposite of 14? Negative 14. Now there's something you guys may have noticed right there, okay? Is if there's an odd number of negatives on those types, then it stays negative, yep. If there's an even number of negatives, then it turns into a positive. All right, absolute values are represented by these types of brackets. That's going to be on those next few problems that we're going to do, okay? An absolute value just describes how far away some number is from 0. So we're talking about distance there. And it would be really weird to talk about distance in terms of negatives. Like, hey, I live negative 30 miles south of here. What the heck does that mean? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've never heard anyone talk like that face to face, unless they, you know, they want to be a jerk about it like most math nerds are. But absolute values, distance from 0, that's always positive. We're just going to say it's always positive, okay? So, for example, if I said, hey, how far away, I'm sorry, this is what this is asking. How far away is 5 from 0? 5. Okay. Well, if I said, how far away is negative 8 from 0? 8. See that right there? So what people get kind of confused about is it an opposite thing? No, it's not an opposite thing. It's just that we're asking how far away something is from 0. Now, it's only what's inside those absolute value lines. They kind of act as parentheses. So in the order of operations, they are there with the parentheses. So let's look at that. If we looked at negative 8 on the number line, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's negative 5. 1, 2, 3. There's negative 8 right there. So if I ask you, how far away is negative 8 from 0? Well, I mean, you could say it's negative 8 from 0, but again, it's a distance that we're talking about, a length, a measurement. So, I mean, I don't know. It's always positive. It's like making cookie dough. I like cookie dough.
I had a teacher once say,
how far away is negative 5 from 0? 5. Right there, right? What about D? Let's look at D. How far away is negative 1 from 0? 1. It's 1 unit. Now see, this one is the tricky one though. So let's look at the absolute value of negative 5 first. Just ignore the negative there in front, okay? So how far away is negative 5 from 0? 5, right? Now I'm going to change those absolute values to parentheses. because, well, it's not an absolute value anymore. But we have that negative out in front. So I'm looking at really the opposite of 5, which is negative 5. So that would be the answer for C. Right, this one right here, that's a less than symbol. Why is it less than? Because it kind of looks like an L for less than. This one is greater than. Why is it greater than? Because, you know, if you just add a little bit to it, it looks like a G. So, less than or greater than, that's how I like to remember it. And then, of course, we got the equals stuff, which just means that it has the same value. Now these, less than or greater than, and I don't mean to be childish about this, but it eats the bigger one. I like food, so I like to think in terms of eating like that. So it's always going to eat the one that's bigger. Specifically, what that means is that on the number line, it's always going to be the number farthest to the right. Always. Always the number farthest to the right. So we have to be careful on these. Because, let's look at, what is that, 12. Sorry, let's do 12 first. So let's look on the number line. We got 0, we got negative 3, which would be right here. And then we got 2, which would be right here. All right, so this is for number 12. Which number is farther to the right? The 2 is. So this one would be greater than. So we got to be careful. Negative 3 has a greater absolute value. But, again, we can kind of look at this in terms of money. Would you rather have $2 or owe someone $3? Well, if it's owe someone $3, then I got a lot of stuff to sell you. So, all right, what about 9? Which one of those two is bigger? Would you rather have $207 or $198? I'd take $207 any day. Number 15. Hey, us math people, we like to be tricky on this stuff. So be very careful, okay? What's the absolute value of negative 59? 59, yeah. It's 59 units away from 0. So if I compared 59 to 59, would you rather have $59 or $59? Doesn't matter. They're equal. There's our answer. All right, so we have, well, 4 absolute values. Let's solve them individually, okay? So let's do this one first. The absolute value of negative 32 is 32. And we'll add this to the absolute value of 40, which is, it's still 40. Because 40 is 40 units away from 0. Well, let's look at the other side now, and then we'll solve these. We have the absolute value of negative 11, which is 11. And then again, the absolute value of 40, it's the same thing, 40. So if I take 32 and add 40, what do I get? 72, very good. And 11 plus 40? 51. So would you rather have $72 or $51? 72. I mean, I'd take both if they'd let me. But